The time has finally arrived. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 9, The Jojolands, has officially released. And I have to say, this was a really nice start to the series, and you get a good intro of what this premise for Part 9 is going to be about. We get introduced to the main JoJos. We got 2 JoJos in this part with these new characters, and honestly, I'm very intrigued to see where this goes, because this is a nice concept for this part. It's a new concept once more for JoJo's, and I'm curious to see where Rocky goes with this story, because he took 2 years off from Part 8, so he definitely had some time to plan stuff out for this. The stands in this part so far, I'm really liking the designs and some of the abilities, even though they weren't 100% explained. I'm going to get all into that once we get in through the actual chapter. I'm not really going to go word for word in this chapter, beat by beat, completely in depth, except for certain sections with like important dialogue and interesting scenes, so I can keep this under 20 minutes, but we'll see how the final video will end up coming. It could end up being 30 minutes for all I know. I didn't really have a script for this. I just got bullet points. But yeah, honestly, if you want to see more JoJo's content, let me know. I plan to make this whole year at the very least covering JoJo's every single month outside of the chapters with other JoJo videos. I'm currently doing review videos on Part 7 and later Part 8 in multi-parted video reviews. I have the first part of Steel Ball Run up right now and the title card up above, and either right after this video comes out or the week after this video comes out, I will have the second video for Parts 7 to be out in that review, and then the finale the week after that. I'll be having these videos coming out hopefully week after week between chapters, and then once I caught up with Part 7 and 8 reviews, I'll just do like 1 to 2 JoJo videos every month outside the chapter reviews. That is the plan, but it all depends on IRL stuff and scheduling. But without further ado, let's hit that intro and get right into the chapter. First page of JoJo's is basically just a Rocky just talking about stands, and I feel like based on the dialogue here, talking about how stands are all over and have always been there, but just have been unseen and no one has tried to see them, I feel like that is going to play an important part in this section of the story, and I'm curious to see, because we might actually get like more info on stands in this universe and the origins of stands in this universe. So we get a nice full page color spread of the new JoJo and a boat sailing away from a volcano island, with the narration saying, "This is a story of one boy becoming rich in the subtropical islands. This boy, Jodio Joestar." And yeah, really awesome full page spread. I like Jodio's design, it's really cool and interesting. But the chapter starts off basically with some police officers in Honolulu, so this is taking place in Hawaii, which is a really interesting and a really nice idea for location, since it's basically an archipelago of islands, and there's so much you can do with Hawaii as a setting, and that's honestly a really cool idea. But the officers pull over 2 people in a pickup truck, and then ends up leading to the officer patting down the driver. The scene is honestly a bit uncomfortable, I'm not going to show it obviously, but yeah. The kid in the passenger seat is Jodio, and he comes out of the car walking towards the officer, telling him to unhand the driver, which is Dragona Joestar. I'm going to get into Dragona in a second, but as the partner points a gun at him, he is then pinned to the ground as the officer is confused as to what is happening. There are circle-like dents in this officer on the ground, and we then see that it's actually droplets falling and making these dents in the officer, pinning him to the ground, as we see our first look at Jodio's stand, which the name will be revealed at the end of the chapter, and I'll get to that later. And I just love this stand design. It's like very metallic and stuff like that. It's like just spider legs with blades on it. It's not humanoid. It's the first JoJo stand of a main JoJo that is not humanoid, and that's an interesting way to go about using the stand in terms of its design, and I'm curious to see what the inspiration was in terms of its design and its name. But then as the other officer that was pinning down the driver, Dragona, is about to shoot Jodio, Dragona then places their hand on the officer's face, shifts their hand, and the eyeballs on the officer shift and ends up missing their shot. Jodio then uses a stand to pin this officer on the ground, and Jodio then starts stomping on the officer for, well, doing some very indecent and inappropriate stuff, to say the least. Honestly, this officer did kind of deserve it. I'm fully on Jodio's side on this. But Dragona then stops Jodio before he goes any further with the stomping. Jodio then basically lights the police car on fire, stating that they have to get rid of basically the cameras in the patrol car and the body cameras so they aren't like pinned to what happened to the officers, and so they can't come after them. Dragona just says, well, alright, whatever, let's just change the license plate. Dragona then taps on the license plate, and we see Dragona stand, being these little mini stand creatures, a bit metallic also, with little tires that are shifting the license plate, similar to what you did to the guy's face, in order to change the license plate numbers on it so they don't trace this truck back to them, even though it wasn't theirs to begin with. And they've been doing this with the fake driver's license that they had given the officer previously. They then drive off and go to a meeting place in a junkyard, seemingly, as it's revealed that they're basically drug peddlers. Seems like their job is transporting stuff, more or less. So that is honestly a interesting way to go with the main characters of the story, especially with a Jojo being in doing these types of things right now. We then get a bit of a narration on their mother and how kind of a person that she is, being a single mother raising these two kids, going off to work, how nice people are. But turns out Jodio and Dragona have been protecting their mother from behind the scenes with their connections. So yeah, with all the jobs they've done, they're basically ensuring that their mother has a safe and kind social circle. Shows just how much they care for their mother, even though they're doing these illegal acts in secret. But we get fully introduced to Dragona Joestar, who is 18 years old, and Jodio Joestar, 15 years old. They're siblings. Now, here's the thing. Dragona is referred to as Jodio's big brother, being referred to as a man, with Jodio using he, him pronouns. It's also stated that Dragona ends up liking women's fashion and works at a fashion boutique, but also had cosmetic injections to their chest and butt. Now, the thing I want to address really quick, apparently, I saw this on Twitter, that the translators weren't 100% sure if Dragona is trans or not. Well, yes, Dragona is being used with he, him pronouns right now. Some of the translators did say that they weren't 100% sure if Dragona is trans or not. So for this instance, I'm going to probably going back and forth between he and her. For all we know, Dragona is gender fluid, until this is 100% stated by the character themselves, or even Araki perhaps in a author's note or something. For now, I'm just going to go back and forth, or I'm just going to go by Dragona just to be safe, because I don't want to make any mistakes or misgender Dragona if it turns out that Dragona is in fact trans. So for now, I'm going to go back and forth, or just go by name. But anyway, back to the story. We get the reveal that they moved to Honolulu from Atlantic City due to some stuff that happened with their parents, and their mother is raising them alone on Honolulu, and that their mother is a Joestar, and that's where they got their last name. And apparently, Barbara Ann Joestar is actually the sister of Holly Joestar, Holly Kira, and the daughter of Joseph Joestar. So Joseph had two kids, which is very interesting. So we got a different branch in the Joestar family tree. We then cut to Jodio going to school, him basically setting up a deal with another kid at their school for, a bag of the stuff that they transported earlier in the chapter. He says they didn't come to school for a social life or to make friends or anything. And he basically says the reason why he came here is for the mechanisms, stating that mechanisms have power, but they're invisible to the eyes. Now, honestly, I think what he's referring to is either stands or fate. Stands makes a lot of sense because they're invisible, and it ties into the very beginning of the chapter, talking about how the power of stands are there but not there, and some people just choose not to see them. So I feel like that's going to be tied into that, or it's just a analogy for fate in this universe, for all I know. I could be entirely wrong, but mechanism is used a lot in this chapter for a multitude of things, and it's even the name of the chapter. So yeah. We then find out that Jodio, basically after coming in contact with one person who was 11 years old, he basically became a gopher, transporting things and handing them over and keeping his mouth shut and not asking any questions, and he's made a good amount of money over the years. So he's been a gopher for years, transporting stuff for multiple reasons. It could be drugs, it could be other stuff, for all we know. and he does other types of jobs as well, which we'll get into what their next job is going to be when we get to the end of the chapter. But what we can get is a pretty decent characterization for Jodio. He cares about his family, he tends to go to extremes with certain things, he tries to be careful and not overstep his bounds when it comes to the work that he's in. He's also kind of a cocky brat, tends to like rubbing things into people's faces. We see this in an instance where he uses stand ability to pin a kid to the ground for seemingly no reason, except for being maybe smart and looking tall. I think he just did it because he felt like it. And he kind of starts like dancing around other people to celebrate or something. Then basically learned that Jodio basically wants to become filthy rich. And saying that he's not exaggerating. He wants to earn a lot of money, and that's what it means to be filthy rich. But there's something far more important than being filthy rich, and that is the mechanisms. Saying that it's something universal. With them, even if you have enemies, you'll already be winning from the start. Mechanisms may be taken or destroyed sometimes, but it's a general principle of this world that they bring you wealth. So again, fate, stands, it could be either one. I feel like it could be more towards stands based off of the beginning dialogue of that one-page image showing all the past stands. I'm going with stands for now, but yeah, it could be that or fate, because Jodio goes on to say, I prefer the word mechanism over system because it's similar to an ecosystem. The pinnacle of mechanisms, that's something I can't yet see. But those mechanisms will come to appear before us as forms and shapes. So this is seeming more like stands, and maybe we'll get more stand lore like I mentioned, and some more things referring to how stands end up manifesting in this world outside of what we learned from part 7 and from part 8. But once more, he refers to this as the story of how he's going to become the richest person in these subtropical islands. We then shift over and we meet a new character called Paco Levelantes. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Pronunciation sometimes is not really good for me. I can be very bad with pronunciation sometimes. Yeah, he works in the same line of work as Jodio, and that he's 19 years old, yet still in high school. He seemingly held back for reasons that we don't really know. His left ear has a huge bite through it, was ripped off by his father for domestic reasons, so that is kind of very bad for him. But yeah, Jodio basically says that he basically swiped the wallet. Did you see it? I bet you didn't see it. He's kind of breaking the fourth wall in his narration for this, which is something new for JoJo's. I don't think a JoJo has actually done this for what I know. I gotta go back and look back at other beginning chapters for JoJo's. But he then goes on to talk about Paco's stand ability. And that's not something that Paco is really trying to hide, stating that Paco loves stealing, and that basically stand ability refers to his muscles. Being able to grab onto things with like the folds in his arms, in his elbows, in his back, without even moving the joints of his fingers. As we see that he managed to not only just grab a mosquito from it, we also see the wallet that he swiped. Seemingly, we don't get a full explanation of what it does, but he can seemingly just swipe things and have it meld into his arms and elbows and stuff like that without people really seeing it, which is honestly very interesting. But then Dragona shows up and basically tells Paco to not steal in their store, and then uses his stand to pull Paco's ear far away, basically yelling and nagging him in the ear. And Paco just gives back all the wallets and says that's that, but basically says, want to head over there to the gym, which is honestly code, which means I'll beat the crap out of you legally in the ring, as Dragona just tells Paco to shut up. So yeah, they kind of have a bit of a rivalry and stuff like that going on from what I can tell, which is honestly kind of funny. My money's on Dragona. But yeah, then a tall woman walks into the store, telling the customers that they're closing early for the rest of the day, and apologizes, as she then motions into her office, as Jodio, Dragona, and Paco move in. We then get a bit of background on the store. It's called Eco Eco. It's where Dragona works, and that they tend to come there after school very often. And the lady that's sitting at the desk is called Meryl May Q, who is the school principal for Jodio, and basically is in charge of this store Eco Eco. She's also their boss. So yeah, she's in charge of giving them all of their jobs and assignments. She then tells them to turn off their phones as a way to be sure not to leave any evidence or any slip-ups with what she's about to tell them. Stating that there is a diamond, a 24-karat round brilliant cut blue diamond that is worth $6 million. and that a wealthy Japanese man is going to stay at a villa in Hawaii Island. And he's going to be staying there for about 12 days or so, and that their group's job is to steal that diamond and bring it back so she can sell it on the black market. So basically, she's going to offer the three of them each 2% of that diamond's overall cost, which ends up being about 40 grand for each of them. And she asks them if they're in or not. Jodio says since he's a gopher, he doesn't really have any authority on taking the job or not, so he's wondering if they'll go. Stating that Paco's eyes are already kind of lit up with excitement, and Dragona looks pretty excited as well. So, based on their faces, they basically decided that they're going to take the job, with the matter being settled that they'll take the job. But then, Meryl ends up stating that they're going to add one more person to their team, making it a team of 4, since it's a large villa and they're going to need more people to look around. As the person that walks in is the swimsuit guy that was seen at the beginning of the chapter. I didn't really mention it, I'm sorry I skipped over that portion, but he was a customer of Jodio for dealings earlier in the chapter. So apparently he was brought in. He basically just comes in nonchalantly, snacking on a sandwich. And Jojo says, is this the work of mechanisms of the world? In every group there's going to be at least one oddball. But yeah, he's basically a noob. But Meryl states that, don't worry, he's a good kid. I guarantee he'll be fine. And the chapter ends with Jojo saying that this is the beginning. The 4 of them off to steal a diamond. But stating that the one thing that their boss was correct about is that the 3 of them originally would not have been enough. But even now, 4 of them, no matter how many people she would have sent, wouldn't have been nearly enough for this job, as they had no idea what they were up against. Leaving this off with a very foreboding feeling that they're way deeper into something much more dangerous than they initially signed up for. With the final page being a 2-page spread showcasing the stands of Jodio, Dragona, and Paco being November Rain, Smooth Operators, and The Hustle. All looking really awesome. I love the names, and I just like with the introduction of their names, we actually get to see symbols that are from their each individual outfits. It's a nice little touch. Yeah, that was JoJo's Part 9, Jojolands. A really nice start to this chapter. We are in a new setting of Honolulu, which I'm glad we're getting a tropical island because that's what Araki wanted to do. Hawaii is a really interesting place. Like I said, it's an archipelago of islands. There's a lot you can do with that. And basically, it's a heist. This whole part is going to be a heist, and I'm curious what they're going to do with it. These stand abilities aren't brawler types. These are more strategically used ones, and I'm curious to see how they're going to use their abilities. I'm liking all the designs, but November Rain is definitely my favorite so far. I'm curious to see what the Scuba Kid stand is going to end up being. One thing I'm very curious about is how they achieve their stands. Because I'm not finished with Part 8. For all I know, there's something in Part 8 that unlocks the stands. And I'm not going to say it right now. I'm halfway through Part 8 right now. But I am very curious to see how this happened in Hawaii and what's going on with the stands. And what other stand users will they find on their way to Hawaii? What's going to happen with the diamond owner? I'm very curious to see where this ends up going. And I am very, very excited for this whole single part. This is the first time I experienced JoJo's for the first time. I've always played catch up with the anime, and now I'm doing that with the manga. But this is the first part of JoJo's that I'm reading from the very beginning, and I'm very excited to share this with you guys. But what did you think of the chapter? Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. I love interacting with you guys, and maybe I missed something in this chapter you guys noticed. What do you think about this whole concept of mechanisms? Do you think Jodio is really referring to stands or fate or both? And what do you think is going to happen with stands or this whole heist? Where do you think this whole thing is going to end up going? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like me covering JoJo's on the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help, and it encourages me to do more JoJo's content. But with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you all have an awesome day.